The Armchair of Anguish. In the quiet, unassuming town of Everbrook, there was an antique shop called Timeless Treasures. The shop was run by an elderly man named Mr. Whitaker, who had an eye for rare and unique pieces. The shop was filled with everything from vintage clocks to ancient books, but among the many items, one piece stood out: a grand, ornately carved armchair. The armchair was an exquisite piece of craftsmanship, made of dark mahogany with intricate patterns carved into its high back and armrests. It was upholstered in deep crimson velvet, which had somehow remained vibrant despite its age. The armchair had a dark history that Mr. Whitaker never shared with his customers. It had once belonged to a notorious Victorian-era judge named Elias Blackwood, who was known for his harsh sentences and lack of mercy. Legend had it that Blackwood had sentenced dozens of innocent people to death, and their restless spirits had cursed the chair upon which he passed his cruel judgments. The curse was said to trap the souls of anyone who sat in it for too long, driving them to madness and despair. For years, the chair sat in the back of the shop, untouched and unsold. That was until a young woman named Emily moved to Everbrook. Emily was a writer, drawn to the town for its tranquility and charm. One afternoon, she stumbled upon Timeless Treasures while exploring the town and was immediately captivated by the armchair. Mr. Whitaker, sensing her interest, hesitated before approaching her. "That's quite a unique piece," he said, "but it's not for sale." Emily frowned. "Why not? It's beautiful. I'd be willing to pay a good price." Mr. Whitaker sighed. "It's not about the money. This chair has a history. It's said to be cursed." Emily, intrigued and slightly skeptical, laughed. "I don't believe in curses. It's just a chair." Despite Mr. Whitaker's warnings, Emily insisted on buying the chair. Eventually, he relented, hoping she would heed his advice and be careful. She had the armchair delivered to her small cottage on the outskirts of town, placing it in her study where she spent most of her time writing. At first, the chair seemed to bring her inspiration. She wrote more fluidly and with greater creativity than ever before. But soon, strange things began to happen. Emily started having vivid nightmares of a dark courtroom filled with anguished faces, all staring at her with hollow eyes. She would wake up in a cold sweat, the sound of a gavel echoing in her ears. The nightmares grew more intense, and during the day, she began to hear whispers barely audible, as if coming from a great distance. The voices seemed to come from the chair, pleading for help, begging for release. Her once productive writing sessions became torturous, filled with an overwhelming sense of dread and despair. One evening, while sitting in the armchair, Emily felt an icy chill envelop her. The room darkened, and she found herself in the Victorian courtroom from her nightmares. Judge Blackwood sat at the bench, his cold, lifeless eyes staring directly at her. The courtroom was filled with the spirits of those he had condemned, their faces twisted in agony. "You have taken my seat," Blackwood's voice boomed, "and now you will share their fate." Emily tried to scream, but no sound came out. The spirits closed in around her, their whispers growing louder, more insistent. She felt herself being pulled into the chair, her body paralyzed, her mind filled with their suffering. She struggled to break free, but the chair's grip was too strong. Days passed, and Emily's friends grew concerned when they hadn't heard from her. They went to her cottage and found her sitting in the armchair, her eyes vacant and unseeing. No matter how much they shook her or called her name, she did not respond. She was alive, but her mind was lost, trapped within the horrors of the cursed chair. Mr. Whitaker, upon hearing the news, came to the cottage. He knew what had happened and felt a heavy burden of guilt. With the help of Emily's friends, he moved the armchair back to his shop, sealing it in a storage room away from prying eyes. Emily was taken to a care facility, where she remained unresponsive, her mind forever haunted by the spirits of the condemned. The armchair, once again hidden away, waited for the next unsuspecting soul to claim. The story of Emily and the Armchair of Anguish became another dark legend in Everbrook, a cautionary tale about the dangers of ignoring warnings and the malevolent power of cursed objects. And in the back of Timeless Treasures, the armchair sat in silence, its crimson velvet still vibrant, its dark history continuing to cast a long, shadowy curse on anyone who dared to defy it.